Sup folks, this is Dan from Discern, and these are my thoughts on the new album from Aaron Gillespie, Out of the Badlands. Aaron Gillespie is a singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and producer who is best known as the former and now current drummer of Under Oath, a hardcore, emo, and metal group he co-founded in 1997. That group put out 7 studio albums over 11 years, and Aaron, rocking the drums and clean vocals, was a defining member of that band's sound. This year, actually, that group came back with a reunion tour. Who knows what's really next for them. Aaron has also released 3 full-length albums as the lead singer and songwriter of The Almost, an emo, alternative rock, post-hardcore band. And if that resume isn't stacked enough, he has also released 2 full-length solo records, both worship albums, actually. Oh, and he recently toured as the drummer for Paramore. So this dude has been busy. But this new solo album is not nearly as hectic as his recent schedule, or not nearly as wild as the past bands he's been a part of. And it's not even at all worship-focused. Like his past 2 solo records. In the context of the collective discography of Aaron Gillespie, this album really stands apart. It's there hasn't been anything like it yet. And that's probably for good reason, considering Aaron has had a year unlike anything he's experienced yet. With his recent divorce, still painfully visible in the rearview mirror, he says that this year has been, in his words, a tumultuous time of life turned upside down. And this album was his attempt to cope and to work through the bombardment of personal stresses he was feeling. It was actually recorded and produced by Aaron himself in his own studio in Salt Lake City. So it's a personal album in many ways, from the context surrounding it to the creation and the work behind it to the lyrical content within it. This album actually makes my job as a reviewer pretty straightforward because it's already divided and categorized into 3 types of tracks. There are covers of songs from Under Oath or The Almost. There are covers of songs from other artists, not personally connected to Aaron. And there are a few new songs written by Aaron. Now, there are some features that permeate the entire record, so let's start there. This album is mostly an easygoing listen. It's heavily acoustic, it's rural, although it does still feature some alternative rock and emo influences as well, mostly due to the genres of the songs that are covered. The instrumentation, features acoustic guitar, obviously, a droney, distant electric guitar lead, a skeleton of a drum set, played often with brushes, it sounds like. A very simple setup, but still played with some really energetic performances. The sounds and the mood vary from like the smooth country feel of Raspberry Layer Cake to the lively and more mobile You Don't Love Me Anymore, which has an upbeat mood that really plays against its depressing lyrics. Aaron's singing on this album is generally, in a lower register than we've usually heard from him. He certainly still screams and shouts, especially on the covers of the Under Oath or the Almost tracks. But the overall dynamics of the album are so mild. He doesn't need to rip his lungs, to break through. This record is more intimate, more personal, so it's fitting that his vocals are more up close and quieter. In fact, numerous times his vocals are so mild and exposed that you hear flaws, in a sense, imperfections that humanize and dissolve the artistic veneer that we're used to seeing in modern music. And you get that actually from the instruments too. The acoustic guitar feels a tad bit sloppy at times. You hear some fret buzzing and some general noise. The electric guitar melodies aren't the sparkliest or all that fascinating, although I do love the lead line in Raspberry Layer Cake. And the overall mix isn't, top-notch all the time. Sometimes it just feels amateur and obviously recorded in his own studio, like on Where the Streets Have No Name. It's apparent there weren't, a bunch of producers and engineers just fine-tuning each moment to land just right. It's a looser production, letting things slide because, it's really not all that important here. And honestly, the production and sound kind of annoyed me at first. I'm used to Aaron Gillespie's vocals soaring with sky-ripping clarity and the whole mix being packed to the rafters, but balanced and even. But this album allows the mix to breathe. It's possibly awkward at times in pursuit of a more realistic and personally emotional sound coming through. It took some getting used to, but I'm digging it. It's a healthy departure, I think, from the raging fire of his past work, from Under Oath and The Almost, or the commonplace worship styling of his previous solo albums. Now, like I said previously, there are basically three categories of songs on this album. The first of which I mentioned being covers of a few songs from Aaron's previous work with Under Oath and The Almost. The Under Oath covers are A Boy Brushed Red, Living in Black and White, and Reinventing Your Exit. And the Almost covers are No I Don't, Say This Sooner, and Southern Weather. These covers, while kind of exciting, and interesting to hear wearing their new acoustic outfits, can't help but feel like they're kind of stuck in a weird middle ground between the flurry and full sound of the originals and the simplicity and minimalism of the instrumentation used on this record. The arrangements, the structure, tempo, basically the spine of these songs are nearly identical to the originals, but the paint and decorations that paint these walls are nowhere near bold enough and large enough to cover every square inch. It feels like the emotions and the moods of the originals aren't fully reinterpreted. They're just done in a similar but smaller way. Basically Aaron pulled these songs out of their original contexts, and I wish he would have pulled them a little bit farther. I wish he would have molded them and bent them a little more to better fit the instrumentation and the direction of this record. All that being said, these versions are growing on me. They still have the exciting and rip-roaring vocal melodies of the originals, and my personal favorite, Reinventing Your Exit, which was actually one of my least favorites the first time I heard it, has some really bright and shiny melodies from the mandolin on the chorus. It lifts this song up, actually, and makes it almost jovial at times, which is never a word I would have described any Under Oath song by. The second category of songs on this record, covers from other artists and bands. There's I Can't Make You Love Me by Bonnie Raitt and Where the Streets Have No Name by U2. I think these are the weakest tracks on the album. I Can't Make You Love Me is mostly sterile, despite its attempt to be one of the most dynamically varied tracks on the album. There's not a single interesting lead melody from any of the instruments either. It's just not compelling in the vocal performance or in the arrangement. The other track, Where the Streets Have No Name, is easily my least favorite. Firstly, the guitar sounds pretty terrible on this song. The echo and the reverb is overdone in an attempt, I'm guessing, to mimic the Edge's tone. And the guitar tone is cheap and tacky. I just don't get, what this cover is really attempting to do. It sounds like Aaron was mimicking the Edge and mimicking Bono and really just mimicking the way this song would sound if U2 themselves played it, but, in this style. It's more mild, sure. It's not as full as the original, sure. But it sounds far too much like U2 to be an interesting cover. Now, the original songs, the final category, these tracks are the best on the album. The three originals, Raspberry Layer Cake, The Fox, and the album closer, You Don't Love Me Anymore. These songs are captivating. They're lyrical gut punches. They're musically well performed. They're even mixed better than any of the other tracks. It really begs the question, why didn't you just write all new songs for this album? Why even do the covers? Especially when you think that this album is meant to be Aaron's shoulder to lean on during probably the most difficult year of his life. Isn't his heart swelling, with more songs to sing than just these three? I would guess he has more to say, more songs to say it in. So I'm hoping, maybe he releases more of this solo material down the road. I hope he kind of keeps digging in this spot, in this direction for a bit, because I really think this sound is something he captured pretty well. His dark voice delivering even darker lyrics, the straightforward folk sort of country structure and pacing, the wailing but very lonely guitar. His originals here are the richest songs on the album, hands down. That's about all I have to say on this album. It is really good, actually. A relaxed listen, totally easy on the ears, So there are links down in the description for you to check out this album yourself. I've also put a link to Aaron Gillespie's Twitter. Give him a follow, if you like what you hear. And that does it. Another week in the books, another album review. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel. New album reviews just like this release every Friday, and new track reviews release every Wednesday. If you have a question or a comment for me about this album or not about this album, let me know. You can comment below this video. You could tweet at me at discernreviews, or you could send me an email, discernreviews@gmail.com. Have you listened to this new solo album from Aaron Gillespie? If so, what do you think of the covers versus the originals? For you Under Oath or the Almost fans, what do you think of this pared down sound? For those of you who loved his worship albums, that's none of you. No, I'm just kidding, folks. Seriously. What did you think of it, too? Let me know your thoughts, about this album or whatever other music has been on your mind lately. Anyway, hope this helps. See ya.